If we had a chance to personally interact with each other today in a smaller setting than, say, these people gathered here today, that conversation would go something like this. I'd extend my hand to you and say, hello, my name is Telisa. You'd extend yours to me, and from that exchange, we'd go to a series of questions that would allow all of us to get to know one another. Those questions would range, some personal, some trivial, and what we would be able to share back. Some of them would be personal, things that we may not even tell our Facebook friends. Like you might ask where I live, and I might be willing to volunteer that I live specifically in this neighborhood at this particular house because we made an interaction. And most of us would find that conversation fairly easy, fairly fluid to engage in, until I ask you this one question. And that question that I would ask you is, what do you dream? What are your dreams? What is it that you dream about? It's also a slightly personal question, and one that you probably answered many times in your life before, but most people find it a little off-putting to answer that question, but not so much to answer the question about where you live or what you do. And I'm not talking about your little d dreams, you know, the things that could be transposed with the word wish, like I dream that I might win the lottery tonight. I don't have to work for that. Maybe the universe would bestow me with that. Or I might even tell you that I dream that somebody here would tell me about a little pill that would allow me to wake up tomorrow about 20 pounds lighter than I happen to be today. That's not the dream I'm talking about. I'm talking about your big D dream, the one that you labor over, you stay up all night, you hear somebody talking about it, you run to write it down, you stay up, you go to bed, you go to sleep on very little bit of sleep, you get up, you go to your job, you come home, feed the children, put them to sleep, and then you labor over it again. That dream. What is your dream? You know, it's a question that you probably answered several times before. It's one that we found easy to answer thousands of different ways and many different permutations when we were children. If you think about it and go back to then, if somebody said to you then, what do you dream? You would be willing to volunteer, as I was at one family reunion when I was not allowed to have any ice cream, that I was going to grow up and build a house made out of ice cream so that I would not have to ask my mother if I could have ice cream. And then she would have to deny me again. So then I just go to the wall, scoop the ice cream out, and then I'm set. And even into your teenage and adult years, maybe early adulthood, you would be able to answer that question again, maybe brazenly at that point. If somebody asked, what is your dream? Like I'm sure somebody might have asked our friend, Mr. Zuckerberg, over at Facebook, he said he was going to build a social graph. What does that mean? And yet that dream of his has become one of the largest businesses in the world, and quite frankly, very useful for most of us to connect to people. But dreams, why is it important to answer this question? The fact of the matter is, it is important because they make a tremendous difference in all the rest of your life. The capacity to actually say what it is, especially into your adulthood years, and to be able to articulate it and willing to share it with someone as we get older, actually could impact your health, your livelihood, how you see the world, whether you're depressed or not, and even how well you sleep. People who say that they have a dream and they are pursuing it and are willing to share with others happen to be 20% more likely to actually be on their path. They also have data that suggests that if you're able to articulate your dream and willing to share with someone what it is, that you're more than most likely willing to be a larger participant in the greater society. Your optimism and those types of things change. So the first time I became fascinated with this idea about dreams is well before I knew those facts and that data. I was in Mrs. Smith's 4th grade class in a small suburb on the southernmost part of the city of Chicago, School District 147. And in the 4th grade class, Mrs. Smith made us learn about the Civil Rights Movement. And as part of that lesson, in order to get an A, I had to remember Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. Not the part that everybody knows. I mean all 1,582 words of the Dr. King speech. And somewhere between learning about this very tumultuous part of our American history and also learning his words and learning them enough that I could say them without paper or pen in my hand and recite it before my class in the ceremony that she cooked up for us, I became fascinated with having a dream big enough that you were, one, willing to tell people about, and two, it had the capacity to profoundly impact not just your life, because it impacted his life to some degree. We would say he died for it, but it impacted my life as well. The fact that I was sitting in Mrs. Smith's 4th grade class on the south side of Chicago was fact that his dream actually had come to pass. So I started asking people, what do you dream? And I remember having various different answers over my life. I recall going back to Mrs. Smith's 6th grade class, because we had a system where you would actually repeat teachers, and I actually defined for her, my dream is I am going to be the female version of that revolutionary Dr. King. And I was so crushed when she told me, you know the revolution is over, right? So I'd like to ask you, what is your dream? How do you define that? Are you willing to actually extend your hand and rather than lose what we've lost in the process, and I quite frankly believe that somewhere between paying your first mortgage payment and your car note all in the same week and figuring out that your mother is no longer going to pay your car note for you, she really meant that you had to pay it yourself, we go from communicating about what we dream versus what we do. And then I think the single most important invention that should not have been done for the sake of all of the latent dreamers in the world happens to be your business card. Because when you hand the card over to somebody, they look at it and they begin to define you not by what you dream, but what you do in this moment. And that's where the conversation starts. It's not about what you think or hope or are willing to stay up for in the middle of the night. It's not about what you want to pursue, even if you're not being paid to do it. It is about what you do in that particular moment. So what do we do? I challenge us all to get back to that. And some people might say that dreams are for the children amongst us, not the data. The data actually says as you age, your dreams become more important to you. And if you actually can define it, in your 40s and your 50s, you're more likely to consider yourself happy. You're more likely to consider yourself a citizen of this great community that this young lady just spoke about right before me, if you're able to define it. So what do we do in order to get back to having conversations around what we pursue and having common is you have to sort of step out and say, I'm willing to share mine. So I am Telisa Yancy. I have a job that I'm not going to tell you about, but I would like to tell you about the things I dream. On a small scale, because I had a baby 17 months ago, I dream of actually preparing to walk the road to Santiago. I need to lose some weight, but it also gives me some time to spend with my husband and my 17-month-old son by the time he's 5. Got to have a goal with that dream because I'm not doing it tomorrow. On a larger scale, I'm participating with a group of friends because the Dr. King speech actually is coming up on a major anniversary later this year. And we're actually looking at what can we do in that. We actually want to start a national registry of dreams so that in honor of that dream that impacted my life and her life and a bunch of other people's lives in this room, whether you look like me or not, that dream changed the world. That's another one that I happen to be working on. So I challenge us all, so the next time that you meet a person in a room, don't give them your business card. When they try to get you to tell them what do you do, ask them, what do you dream? If they look at you crazy, share with them yours. Whether it's the small dream, the little thing that can make a tiny difference in your world and maybe a big difference in someone else's, or maybe your big gargantuan dream, the one that could literally change the world and put a dent in the universe, as one of my favorite dreamers used to say. I ask that you quietly take their business card when they give it to you and put it in your pocket and ask them gently, what do you dream? Thank you.